Hello, I'm Ernest Borgnine. You may remember me as General Warden, part of the unlikely team of heroes in the film The Dirty Dozen. When speaking about his award-winning film, director Robert Aldrich described it as a work that turned the war film inside out. This during a particularly turbulent time in American history, the 60s, when the film was released. As a general in the United States Army, I ordered Lee Marvin to eliminate the Germans at any cost. Originally, MGM offered the role of the rebel Major Reisman to John Wayne, but the Duke bowed out to make Green Berets instead. But Bob Aldrich always saw this role as made for Lee Marvin. Though taking place in a German-occupied French village, the movie was actually filmed in the countryside in England. And it was along these rolling hills that art director Bill Hutchinson assembled a crew of 85 and constructed the massive French chateau, the building that would become the redeeming ground for many of our outcast heroes. But, as in the business of business, so goes the business of movies. Only after building the chateau was Hutchinson told by the special effects crew that it would take at least 70 tons of explosives to destroy a portion of his construction. Plan B? Rebuild that section out of plastic and foam. The result brought down the structure with only a fraction of the explosives. But just as many irate neighbors. The Dirty Dozen managed to get 4 Academy Award nominations in a variety of categories. Best Supporting Actor for John Cassavetes, Editing, Sound, and it won the Oscar for Best Sound Effects. The word was out that Robert Aldrich could have received an Oscar for his direction of Dirty Dozen had he taken out that section showing Jim Brown putting hand grenades into those tubes which led down to those people below. Robert thought about it for a while and said no. Said, because I want people to know that war is hell. He left it in and didn't get the award. It was quite a controversy, but he proved it right, that war is hell. In 1985, Lee Marvin, Richard Jekyll, and I reunited for another mission, a made-for-TV sequel shot in Yugoslavia, followed by 2 more. In these, I teamed up with friend Telly Savalas, who had been with us from the start. Like the rugged renegades of this film, The Dirty Dozen lives on. But now it's time to go back to where it all began, where I gave the order for the first mission decades ago, and where an explosive cast joined forces for one action-packed movie that continues to endure. I thank you, and enjoy The Dirty Dozen.
This is Academy Award winner Lee Marvin, an action guy at work or play. Today, it's work. "17 miles northeast of London, an unusually rugged group of actors begin the first sequences for a new motion picture, The Dirty Dozen. It is here that Lee Marvin will star in his role as the leader of some of the toughest guys on or off a movie set.
Orders from U.S. Army Headquarters, 1944. Select 12 prisoners sentenced to death or lengthy prison terms for crimes of violence. Train them, then deliver them secretly behind the lines on a suicide mission.
John Cassavetes.
Death by hanging.
Football star Jimmy Brown.
Death by hanging.
Clint Walker,
By hanging.
Charles Bronson,
30 years, hard labor. 20 years, hard labor.
Trini Lopez,
Death by hanging.
Telly Savalas.
Death by hanging.
The action of the film starts in an army prison compound in 1944. 12 prisoners convicted of violent crimes can save themselves by volunteering for a suicide mission. The Dirty Dozen volunteer.
John, just a minute, please.
Veteran of 100 acting roles, Lee Marvin finds this his most demanding film assignment.
Look, either you march, or I'll beat your brains out.
Physically, the roughest.
If you moves, if you can tell if your head's gonna come off.
Okay.
Back, Brent, pick up.
Part of the film's action concerns the bone-crushing combat training of the prisoners. It takes 2 months to shoot, but director Robert Aldrich gets what he's looking for.
Action.
Marvin and the other actors will master judo and commando techniques for killing quickly and silently.
Well, I'm shoving you. Now, come on. Let me have it. Don't push me. Give it to me, Posey, or I'm going to shove you right through the wall. I don't like to be pushed. Posey, what a name for a guy like you. Take up! Come on, You can handle it. Push him! You can handle it. Stop it! Oh, yeah!
Cut. Out.
6 days a week, Lee Marvin is a movie maker. On his day off, he looks for another kind of action. A motorcycle race at the Southdown Motocross. Marvin used to race his own bikes. Now gets his kicks being in the middle of a 200-mile cross-country test. Marvin is a pleasure to work with, a real pro. His enthusiasm is contagious. He passes it on to others and puts them at ease. With the filming of the commando-style training completed, it's time to move out to a new movie site. In the new location, scenes will be shot at the Dirty Dozen preparing for their final desperate mission. Director Aldrich, functioning very much like a general, spends weeks commanding the huge troop movements that involve over 1,000 actors and technicians. 100 World War II vehicles are cleaned up and reactivated. They're brought in from holding depots all over Europe to take part in the film. The movie company sets up in the small English village of Aldbury. Although there are few days of sunshine, the cameras, actors, and technicians keep rolling on schedule. London is switched on 7 days a week. The stars have time for only one of those days. Some, like Ernest Borgnine and Robert Ryan, have families with them and do a tour of the town. The others take a break on King's Row, the main stem of London's mod world. Swinging London is an ideal setting for these men, action guys enjoying themselves on the town. The restless vitality of the city seems to charge their batteries, set them up for another 6 days of grueling work before the cameras. Jimmy Brown is a newcomer to the movies, but he's very much at home with the other actors who make up the Dirty Dozen. The atmosphere is friendly and relaxed, but a time for tension is just ahead. One of the film's most difficult sequences must be shot, the total destruction of a hideout for top German brass. It will mean a personal risk for everyone involved. 6 months ago, producer Kenneth Hyman gave instructions to his staff. Build a large chateau with boathouse and bomb shelters. Include river, landscaping, and sentry posts. We'll use it for 25 nights. Then, blow it up. A 250-man construction crew completes the job of building the Nazi hideout in 4 months. And the shooting begins. big night arrives. The night the chateau goes. Jimmy Brown is the man who'll touch off the massive explosion. With his speed and agility as a pro football player, he can get in and out before the fireworks begin. Cameras are aimed and ready. 6 months of planning and preparation are on the line. This is it. London sees the flames 20 miles away. These men came to London to make a motion picture that moves. They enjoy action. It's part of their way of life. The aches and pains they suffer, the risks they take, are a price they gladly pay. Right now, with the chateau scene under their belt, they've earned a break. Ahead, there are more locations, more tension and strain. But that's how it goes with men of action. That's how it is for the movie makers.
Lever, R.
From the moment we started, we knew there was something special about it.
Sawyer, SK.
There was a feeling that this was going to be not just another run-of-the-mill war movie.
Jefferson, RT.
It was like an opportunity for a great breakthrough for a black actor at the time.
Jimenez, P.
Robert Aldrich, the director, he was kind of a tough guy.
Posey, S.
He wanted it to be as authentic as he could make it.
Pinkley, VL.
He wanted to make a war film that was ugly, that was brutal and vicious, and nobody was good.
Dirty Dozen shows you that wars ain't nice things.
It was a fine, fine film, even though people did say that it was horrific and everything else.
Up through, let's say, the mid-1940s, up to the end of the war films were essentially about the squad, about a group, about Americans working together to win the war.
If you think of any traditional mainstream movie made right after World War II, that was all about, if you will, properly memorializing the sacrifice that so many people made to win that war.
Then you started getting more reflective films about the war and what was going on in the war. You had something that people were a little hesitant about at first, like The Desert Fox, where all of a sudden we were supposed to see the German enemy as a hero in some way. And so the shifting grounds of the war film into the 50s changes the attitudes towards the war.
By the time you get to Dirty Dozen, it's really about something else. It's about people who really just want to survive the war.
Look, you little bastard, either you march, or I'll beat your brains out.
With the demise of the code office, you had the ability to use four-letter words which gave more realism to the films than you had had up to that point. By the time you get to the Dirty Dozen, they can get away with a lot more.
My first novel is The Dirty Dozen, and I had about 500 some odd pages finished and had long since run out of money. So I had the West Coast editor of Dell and Random House take it and get me a motion picture option.
Aldrich had tried to buy The Dirty Dozen before it was published, but MGM had purchased the rights.
And then finally he was brought onto the project by Kenneth Hyman.
MGM said, "We own a book. Would you like to produce it?" I read the script. I said, "It's interesting. I like it. But
If you want me to do it, I want to start from scratch. I'd like Nunnally Johnson to do the screenplay. Make a long story short, Nunnally Johnson was signed to do the script. I then went after a director. And I knew Aldrich because we had done Baby Jane. I was executive producer on that. He had an ornery quality that I liked a lot. He was his own man. He was terrific with actors.
Aldrich, of all of the great directors I knew how to deal with an individual on that individual's basis.
He was the kind of a fella, all man, very quiet, soft-spoken. People jumped when he, said jump.
He was a tough guy. He'd been around. After all, this is a guy who managed to control Betty Davis and Joan Crawford in a movie. Baby Jane.
I think Aldrich obviously had, if not a reputation, at least could demonstrate from his previous films that bringing together a group of actors and staging ensemble scenes was something that he was comfortable doing.
I think you must cast a director like you cast an actor, and I thought he would be superb casting for the movie. Happily, he liked what he saw and said, let's go.
Deal was a good one from Aldrich's point of view, not only in terms of the money, but also in terms of the creative prerogatives it gave him. He had cast approval. He went in saying that he needed to rewrite the script.
He wanted to bring his writer, Lucas Heller, in to do a polish.
Aldrich read the script, and while it was well crafted, it was, he thought, a 1945 war movie, and that's not what he wanted to make. So what he asked from Heller was to essentially make it reflect a lot of the concerns of 1967.
And in reworking it, they turned it into this sort of anti-authoritarian, anti-war movie.
Count up! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
In casting a project like this, I think Aldrich understood that he had to cast from a diverse group of actors that would indeed reflect the diversity of wartime.
I think the fact that the part of Major Reisman was originally offered to John Wayne is intriguing, and also it's intriguing that John Wayne turned it down.
Afterwards, Aldrich was accused of not wanting Wayne because of his politics, and Aldrich pretty straightforwardly said that's not what mattered to me. It was Wayne's on-screen persona.
He knew John Wayne would, first of all, change the whole tenor of what became Lee Marvin character.
I think we were very lucky to get Lee. At the end of the day, Lee was better than Wayne would have been.
Look, they might not be pretty, but any one of mine is worth 10 of yours.
Lee Marvin brought a commitment to the character and brought something to that character which John Wayne wouldn't have brought the same thing to it.
Lee Marvin was all Marine. I mean, he was a Marine. That was it, period.
Lee was a great person, very bright, and very strong, as he would have to be to lead that group of men.
Now, you've got a job to do, mister, so move it. Yes, sir.
When The Dirty Dozen came about, Robert Aldrich had certain actors that he was very fond of and they would use again and again. Ernie Borgnine was one of them.
I was making McHale's Navy at the time, and I had to get back from McHale's Navy, but this fit into the thing just perfect, so that I could go to England, make the film, and come back and still be in time to start shooting McHale.
This war was not started for your private gratification, and you can be damn sure that this army isn't being run for your personal convenience either.
Ernest Borgnine was interesting because Ernest Borgnine has always been sort of an alter ego for Aldrich. He looks a lot like Aldrich. And so he in many ways, he sometimes plays his alter ego, and you see it a little bit in The Dirty Dozen. When he's running the meetings, that's the way Aldrich sort of ran meetings, with a drink and sort of this, yeah, I'm following the rules, but I'm not really following the rules.
John, good to see you. Don't you give me that. We had dinner last night together, remember? Be nice.
I was involved with The Dirty Dozen because I had worked for Robert Aldrich. He was a friend, and he gave me a shot at things when I was first starting out that were very meaningful for me. Originally, I wanted to do the part that Telly Savalas did, the crazy nut, and Aldrich said, George, believe me, you could play the Savalas part, but Savalas couldn't do what I need you to do. So it was a very nice compliment. I would have worked for him anyway.
Aldrich liked to use people on two ends of it. He liked to use people who were older, who had established names, like Robert Ryan and Richard Jacob. But he also liked to get people who were sort of maybe down on their luck, or people who were just give them a little bit of a start. And so you have the case of like John Cassavetes, who started the independent film movement. But he'd always been sort of put aside. He hadn't worked much because he was temperamental, because he had that whole sort of independent attitude.
So what are you gonna do? You're gonna hang us? What can they do? They can't do nothing.
Cassavetes didn't want to do the movie. He wanted to direct the movie. I had almost a fist fight with him to cry. He'd say, Johnny, for God's sakes, this is a wonderful role. Do the movie. Put the money in your pocket, then make your movie. And he almost didn't do it.
Who is refusing to shave?
We are.
Who is we?
We!
I remember Lee saying to me once that Cassavetes was a huge help to him because of John's spontaneity and the way he'd chop and change things and bringing stuff to Lee that Lee could, could work off of, and really kind of brought the conflict of the dozen in a single voice to him.
I don't like offices, not any of them, and I never have.
Charlie Bronson was a very unique guy.
I remember that when we started filming, everybody was afraid of Charles Bronson. Everybody was very intimidated by him.
Charlie Bronson had instructions to get his hair cut, and just before we started shooting, he still hadn't got it done. Everybody else was buzzed out of their head. Bob Aldrich is on the telephone at the end of the table. He said, Charlie, I have your lawyer on the line in California. He wants to know whether you're going to get your hair cut or he should come over and cut it.
You gonna tell us or not? Go to hell.
I don't think he wanted to be in England. I don't think he was particularly happy with life at that time, and he was pretty well morose through the whole movie.
Major! Yes, you Major Reisman. I saw those filthy strumpets.
Telly Savalas, I mean, I don't know anybody that could have done the part as well as he did.
Do we have to eat with niggers?
Telly was interesting because he brought another edge to the story that it really needed, and in a way, I think on set, Telly was almost like that a bit.
At one level, Dirty Dozen is really a male, testosterone-driven picture, and you have a lot of actors coming from different kinds of genre forms. Clint Walker coming from the Western.
Kind of rough on the little fellow, aren't you? Like you try that with me?
Working with Clint Walker, I had never met him before, but I used to watch him a lot on Cheyenne, his big series on television.
It was like a vacation to me, you know. I was used to television where, you know, I was in almost every scene, and you had to get 14 pages a day, whereas when you're shooting a picture like that, you know, if you get 4 or 5 pages a day, boy, you're doing great.
Don't sweet talk me, Whitey. You know why I'm here. Or maybe you think I should have let those cracker bastards go right ahead and castrate me.
Jim Brown, the greatest football player of all time up to that point, maybe even generally of all time. And this was the moment in which he decides to go into the movies instead, to leave his career.
Bob was an insane football fan, and I think he would have done anything to spend a couple of months with Jimmy Brown just to talk about football.
I had a great opportunity because of him, you know. Any other director, I don't know if it would have worked because I didn't have a lot of experience at the time.
Bob Aldrich sort of deleted some of our parts to make room for Jim. In fact, I was supposed to do a rain dance and didn't get to do it, and I was very disappointed.
It was great for me right from the beginning because every one of those guys adopted me and helped me. It's almost like having, 15 acting coaches, because I was a rookie, and if they wanted to destroy me, I would have never been able to get a word out.
So I think there's quite a lot of pressure on him. A lot of pressure, and I think he felt it amongst all these actors. I think he did a very nice job. He certainly enjoyed London when he was there.
It was one of the best times of my life from the standpoint of working on something that I like and the nightlife.
We played some football, but scary when you come running at you, I tell you.
And then there were people in it who were just present, like Trini was in it for personality.
Buenos dias, Major.
Trini had a kind of lightness, and so we fit in for varieties.
If you're rich to plug one, as sure as you are born.
Trini Lopez was a very, very important singer.
My agent at that time, he didn't want me to do the film. And I said, why? And he said, because, you've never really done any acting, and I think you're going to get lost in the shuffle with all those big stars. And I said, the old saying is, if you want to learn how to swim, you have to jump in the pool. And so that's exactly what I did.
What's the matter? You need a special invitation?
No, sir.
No, sir.
I mean, yes, sir.
Then move it.
Ken Hyman said, I got a little problem. I said, what is it? He said, Bob Aldrich is going to show up next week, and we didn't have any actors to see for the second half of The Dozen, which we're not bringing from New York. I made a bunch of calls and put together a list of people for Aldrich to see. And it wasn't a big list, so that pleased Bob because he found the 6 people that he wanted very quickly.
You've got one religious maniac, one malignant dwarf, 2 near idiots, and the rest I don't even want to think about.
Auditions came up, and actually I was there ready to audition.
This was the biggest break of my career. Call came through about Dirty Dozen. Would I go for an interview? So I said, oh, wow, yeah, meet Robert Aldrich, wow.
He was just an awesome man, you know.
I think the interview probably lasted about 10 minutes. And there we were, I was cast. So that was not quite my first professional role, but it was pretty close.
I was hired as an extra. It was the best job I ever had. I had one line. My line was,
Number 2, sir.
The fresh faces were fillers, if you will. They had to be competent, obviously. They had to be interesting looking. Some of them went on to build exciting careers.
So now, if you Dirty Dozen have no objections, we will start in right now.
When we went to rehearsals, we were all there, and it was at MGM Studios on one of the sound stages in London.
We had rehearsal period around this great big table covered with green cloth, like a pool table. It was a huge, long thing.
There was a chair for every actor with their character's name on the back of the chair, and in front of each of the chair was the most beautiful red leather-bound script and script cover with the Dirty Dozen.
The whole cast sat around with Kenneth Hyman and Bob Aldrich, and we went through the whole script.
I think the magic happened the first day I saw the cast together. I mean, walking through the rehearsals, the chemistry was very exciting.
We had 2 weeks of reading, talking, training that we continually showed up for every day. It was taken very seriously.
I just went all out with it.
We did a lot of rehearsals. Saves a lot of time on camera.
I think it was a big help for everybody getting acquainted with each other and learning who was playing what characters, and a lot of script changes were going on the back of the rehearsal and during the rehearsal.
I mean, I was given a wonderful opportunity because Clint Walker, who was playing Posey, the character was a Native American, and Clint interrupted the proceedings because we were reading through the script and said, Mr. Aldrich, I think it is incorrect in my position as a star in Hollywood and someone representing the American Indian people to play this stupid scene where I have to pretend to be a general. And Bob Aldrich looked up and looked down the table and said, you with the big ears, you do it.
Where are you from, son?
Madison City, Missouri, sir.
Never heard of it.
And that changed my life completely. Ingo Preminger saw that scene and gave me MASH.
The very first day of working together, Lee Marvin had just come back from winning the Academy Award.
He'd been nominated for Capaloo. And on the next day of rehearsal, when we all arrived on time, Lee had already shown up. And he was sitting in his chair at the head of the table right next to Bob's chair. The Oscar was plonked right on the green felt. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, and he probably had far too much to drink. And he just sat there with this Oscar. Everybody congratulated him, of course. He didn't say a word, but it was just an unbelievable moment. It was wonderfully cute and totally in the Lee Marvin style.
Lee Marvin and I were working back and forth. And they said, okay, let's take 5. So we went outside, and this one man came by, one of the cast, and he said, I wonder what 2 Academy Award winners have to say to each other. And without missing a beat, he looked up and said, you'll never know. And went right on talking. And I looked at him aghast. I said, how can this man be like that? But that was Lee Marvin, you know?
Sure.
Lee was in his drinking period during Dirty Dozen, and Lee could drink a lot of alcohol. And it seldom affected his work, but he was at war with the producer.
Lee was slowing the production down. Charlie was going to kill Lee. He was physically going to attack Lee. I said, Charlie, wait till the picture's finished.
I remember the difficulties was mainly what they call the bloody weather in England. We would go on location, drive way out, and we wouldn't shoot 1 foot of film because we couldn't see in front of our faces.
I remember nobody did what they did in the rehearsal. Nothing was done that was actually done in the take. And just before the take, all kinds of things changed. Chewing gum, jackets were taken off, all kinds of stuff appeared and disappeared because everybody was doing their thing, you know, trying to be an individual in a line of 12.
Those are the 2 guys that got water slow.
When I used to line up my boys, mid-dozen, and I'd go down the line like a sergeant major, checking their costumes, that the buttons, you know, you'd got 2 done up. Well, I'd get from one end to the other, and I've done them all. But of course, by the time I got to the end of the row, the top is now mainly Mr. John Cassavetes, being a method actor. Of course, he's all undone again.
You tell him we've all had it. Quiet!
In every scene that we had, the Dirty Dozen lineup, Aldrich allowed a lot of freedom. And Cassavetes was always doing something.
Right, soldier?
No, sir!
No, sir, what?
No, sir! I am not going to shave, sir!
I'd never know what would come out of John's mouth, nor would anybody else, from take to take.
The Mafia has landed. Whatever Franco says, Franco does.
We would be riding in the car on the way to location, and one morning I said, John, I've been watching your dailies, and I think you're going to be nominated for an Academy Award. And he thought I was crazy. He says, Trey, what are you talking about? I said, I'm telling you, that's all. I'm just saying this, you know. And he was the only one that was nominated for an Academy Award for the Dirty Dozen.
Blimey, they're filthy. We certainly shot a lot of film.
Bob Aldrich believed in doing a master, as every director does, and he would then do a take from every conceivable angle. If it was just a simple 2-person shot, he would get a crane and he'd shoot directly down, he'd dig a pit and he would shoot up. And of course this added to the overall length of the movie. I'm sure it must have driven the producer mad when he saw that once again they were dropping behind schedule, but that was his way. And he was a master craftsman, and it showed, I think, in the film.
The picture was running really, really late. My contract was for 4 months, and I stayed 3 extra months, and the picture was not even half completed. And Frank Sinatra was in London, and he invited me to dinner, and he said, I understand that your film is really running late. And I said, yes, they are. And he said, well, you know, he said, you're really hot with your career, and the public is very fickle. I think they'll forget about you. And he said, I think you should go back to your career. And I said, well, do you mean I should leave the film? He says, yes.
So he came back to Bob Aldrich and said, I'm gone, I'm finished. You know, you've gone over your time, I'm done.
And so we all showed up for the scene in the forest, and we were waiting around, and we noticed it's 11 of us. Well, where's Trini? And finally somebody shows up and whispers into Bob Aldrich's ear. More consultations going on. Finally, it's announced to us that Trini has pulled out of the movie, and we're going to have to rewrite that scene. So finally, they rewrite a scene where Jim Brown joins the other 10 of us by then. And Lee Marvin says,
where the hell you been? We're 6 minutes late.
We've been looking for Jimenez.
And?
We found him hung up in an apple tree.
His neck's broken.
You mean he's dead?
That's exactly what I mean.
Trini came to the screening that night, even though he was done. And he looked at the picture and he said, oh shit, Mr. Aldrich, I would like to come back and play this and finish the role. And Bob Aldrich said, you're hanging in a tree, Trini, you know, you're out of here.
Carol Rosenblum, who owned the Cleveland Browns, visited the set one day, wanted to get Jimmy to come back to play football.
Art Modell really made a mistake because he gave me an ultimatum. You know, when you're making a movie, you don't leave. You know, that's one of the laws of being an actor. And so I retired on the set of The Dirty Dozen, called the press conference, and announced my retirement.
The film was shot to some extent in sequence. So the chateau, which more or less is the end of the movie, we shot late October on overnight shoots.
Bob had these huge white cards, and he wrote these cards all the various pieces of action because he had so much to cover. That whole chateau sequence, I mean, I don't know how many cuts are in it, but it's huge.
It's just like the Major said it would be.
Yeah. Really some spread, ain't it?
I think the Chateau build was probably around 16 weeks, something like that, from the riggers going in and the plasterwork going on top. Although the Chateau was only to be seen at night, it didn't mean that the finish in any way was made easier because of that. The finish still had to look very good.
I was there when they were shooting. They had the chateau set up, and I was just overwhelmed by what the chateau said. I mean, I came around between some caravans and looked up, and there it was, right out of my head.
I will always remember where the big blow-up is to happen. There must have been half a dozen cameras there, so there's Ariflexes everywhere.
The chateau had to have sections of it pre-built and planned so that when it exploded, the front of it, over the door, balcony, all sort of came away with an explosion, so it had to look convincing.
Robert Aldrich says, now look, you guys, when this goes up, I want you to flinch. Don't just sort of look at it. It's supposed to be a big explosion. Well, we didn't have to act at all. They set so much explosives in this thing that when it went up, we nearly dove under a rock to get away from the thing. Boy, did it blow up.
We were about, I guess, 25 miles out of London, and London heard the boom. A lot of complaints from the neighbors.
That sequence at the end where the Germans, including women, are down in the bunker and we pour gasoline on them. I'm sure Bob Aldrich considered removing that sequence from the picture. I'm sure, because I know for a fact, that a lot of people of the studio heads wanted that sequence out of the picture.
Jefferson! When I give you the signal, set him off 1, 2, 3, 4, and get the hell out of there!
I heard that they would put him up for an Academy Award if he took out that part. And he thought about it for a moment, just a moment, and I know he said, no, I won't do it. Why, Bob? You can win an Academy Award if you do it. He said, look, I don't care about Academy Awards. He said, I just want people to know what a hell a war is. And he didn't win the Academy Award, but they left it in.
Come on! Jefferson, bastard!
As it turned out, how much poorer it would have been if they tried to fudge the ending and do that and make it slightly more humane. It wasn't supposed to be. We weren't humane soldiers.
That whole business at the chateau was done in the military reports at the end of the novel. It wasn't played out. I thought that Aldrich was a lot gutsier than I was in the ending he made of the movie.
At the time, people said, this is so violent, this is terrible, we don't want to see this kind of film, even though it was the biggest grosser of the year.
It saved MGM's ass. It really did. They were going down the tubes.
American critics, and Aldrich was very aware of this, panned it. Didn't like the violence, didn't like what they thought was, the glib, macho behavior. Whereas European audiences saw something very different. Aldrich himself pointed out, they made the connection between the scene at the end in which people are burned up with gasoline and the napalm that was being dropped in Vietnam. That's a connection he wanted made. But consciously, subconsciously, that connection is what made The Dirty Dozen one of the first of still evolving change in the war movie genre.
1967. This is another kind of cusp that Aldrich wanders into by luck or by chance or premeditation or whatever it is. It's Black Power. This is when Black Power comes in 1967.
What is this, anyway? Uncle Tom week?
I love the character because the character had a lot of dignity, and it was almost a breakthrough at the time for a black actor. Bob was so conscious of what was going on in the country, and I think he was very careful in the movie to make sure that my character had the dignity.
The anti-authoritarian piece of the film was lucky timing. The timing just worked. The timing for the movie worked. 5 years earlier, 5 years later, it might not have been as big a success.
The film is still popular today. It's referenced in movies, it's referenced in TV shows. Everyone knows what the Dirty, even if you haven't seen it, everyone knows the title Dirty Dozen. But I think on a subtler level, one thing that Aldrich did with that film was to say that you could make an anti-war film within the system and still have it be an anti-war film.
Bob and I had a very tenuous but strong friendship. I told the truth and he told the truth. Now, two guys who tell each other the truth in the film business can be very rough and rocky. And it was, but it was also wonderful. He's a big loss, a huge loss.
I suppose probably I have regret Bob asked me to do another picture, and I didn't do it, and I really owed it to him to do it, because MASH had come out, and it would have been good for me to have done it for him, and I regret that. I really do. I regret because I was rushing off to do other things that I thought, and I just didn't recognize how truly important he had been in my life as a man. I have huge affection for him.
I owe a lot to Bob Aldrich, in the sense that a director called Delbert Mann, who directed Marty, came down to get some pointers from Bob Aldrich. And when he came down, of course, he had the script of Marty under his arm, and Bob Aldrich said, "May I read the script?" I said, "Sure." He read it, and at a party a couple of weeks later, Bob Aldrich was asked by the producers of Marty who, in his estimation, could play that part. Did he know of any actor? He says, "You know, I know of only one actor," he said, "Ernest Borgnine. Come on, he's a killer. You know, he stabs people in the back, and he kills and shoots, and no, he said, "Don't kid yourself. He's an actor, and he can do it." So they said, "Well, let's take a chance." And the rest is history, thanks to Bob Aldrich.
Bob Aldrich had a huge impact on me as a young actor and a potential director, and I probably learned more watching Bob. People ask me about directing, where you go to school. I did it on the Dirty Dozen.
Did a fine job, Major. I'll see you around.
Dirty Dozen was a hit from the instant it showed up until today. It still plays, and the audiences are phenomenal, because Dirty Dozen stands up. It was a great film.
Killing generals could get to be a habit with me.